In the third row, it's my pleasure to introduce Bill Bolt, who is the Vice President for University Advancement here at Cal Poly. Also, we have with us Dan Howard Green, who is the Executive Assistant to President Baker at Cal Poly. It's my pleasure to introduce Frank Labens, who is the Vice President for Administration and Finance, and also is a former officer in the United States Navy. We have a special new guest, Kim Gannon, who is the Director of Alumni Relations here at Cal Poly. John Furtado, who is the President of the Cal Poly Alumni Association. And a special guest, Angie Hacker, who is the President of the Associated Students here at Cal Poly. And finally, let me introduce two other special guests in our audience. Christine Mulholland, who is a member of the City Council for San Luis Obispo, and Ken Happian, who is the City Administrator for the City of San Luis Obispo. Thank you all. You're all special guests, and thank you for these individuals that we've introduced. It's an honor at Cal Poly to have them present. It's difficult for me to find the right words to pay tribute to men and women who gave their lives to protect our nation. And so I'm going to cheat and resolve that by quoting briefly from someone who did find the right words, Abraham Lincoln. About halfway through the Civil War, Abraham Lincoln, in November of 1863, was asked to come to Gettysburg, where there had been a terrible battle the previous summer. And he was asked to come and participate as they dedicated a graveyard for men who had lost their lives in that great battle. And when he arrived, he said, and I quote, "We are here to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who gave their lives that our nation might live." And I think in the Gettysburg Address, that's perhaps the most important single phrase. These men gave their lives so that the nation, what America means, what America is about, the nation might live. Lincoln went on to say, quote, "We cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here have consecrated it far above our power." I think the same can be said for the men, the Cal Poly students who gave their lives for our country. But Lincoln went on to explain what we can do. We do not have the capacity to consecrate this ground in the same way that the men who gave their lives have already demonstrated. But as Lincoln said, and I quote, "It is for us, the living, rather to be dedicated to the unfinished work which they who fought here have so nobly advanced. From these honored dead, we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion. We here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom," unquote. That's the essence of the Gettysburg Address, and it's the essence of America, to honor those who have served their country, but to honor them by dedicating ourselves to what it means to be an American, to dedicate ourselves to a new birth of freedom. And in that spirit, it is my privilege on behalf of Cal Poly to receive these plaques and to say thank you to the veterans in the audience today, to the veterans throughout America, and particularly to those who have made the supreme sacrifice. As we unveil these plaques then, as we recognize Cal Poly's fallen veterans, let us rededicate ourselves so that we understand what America really stands for, a new birth of freedom. And now it's my pleasure to call for the cadets to make an unveiling. This plaque says, and I quote, Navy Department, United States of America. This mark of commendation is awarded to California Polytechnic School for effective cooperation in training naval personnel during World War II. Naval Flight Preparatory School, Navy Academic Refresher Unit, and it's signed James Forrestal, Secretary of the Navy. And it commemorates the support of 4,700 men who went through pre-flight training here at Cal Poly to become aviators. The second plaque says simply, and I quote, in memory of those who paid the supreme sacrifice in World War II, California Polytechnic College, presented by the class of 1946, and there are 58 names. And finally, the third plaque says, and I quote, dedicated to world peace in grateful memory of those who gave their lives in post-World War II conflicts, California Polytechnic State University, and there are the names of 5 men who died in the Vietnam War. And now, it is my pleasure to introduce our special keynote speaker. In September of 2000, he's been the superintendent at the Naval Postgraduate School. Admiral Ellison's personal awards include the
Righetti family, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to take a little bit of a risk before I start here. I'd like Don Morris to stand, please, and Robert E. Lee and Judy. Individuals have done an awful lot to make today possible, and I think we owe them all an additional round of applause.